You are listening to Footy Talk, your place for the latest news, interviews, and analysis from the world of AFL. And as we do every Tuesday, I welcome in Nick Riewoldt from Texas. But Rooey, we have a very special day today because I thought, well, seeing it is so relevant that the tagger is back in vogue. Everyone is talking about the tagger. Every club has now got a tagger. I thought we need to bring in the best in the business, the man that we had at St Kilda, who was one of the originals, one of the best taggers, Stevie Baker. Hello to you, Bakes. Nice to have you
Thanks,
in.
Joe.
Rooey,
Thanks,
nice
Rooey.
to see you as well.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Good to see
Really
you,
good to be
Andy.
on.
You're right. He's the OG. The OG tagger. How are you, Bakesy?
Going well, Roo. Great to see your face. Even though it's on a screen, it's still good to see those big pearly whites.
Let's get into it straight away.
Straight into it.
Ask you
Straight
about
into it.
ask you about the tagging, Bakes. I know you're not an avid football follower, but you still keep an eye on it. I remember last year you did an interview on TV. They were asking, should clubs tag Nick Dacos? And you went on Channel 7 News and were adamant that you can tag anybody if you're good at what you do. Have you guessed what's happened in the last month? Nick Dacos has started to get tagged.
No shit.
He was still pretty good, to be fair, on the weekend.
They should have listened last year.
Now clubs are actually tagging. It must warm the cockles of your heart to see the tagger back.
Yeah, I was surprised it even went away. I think guys like Nick Dacos can just turn the game off their own boots. So I think guys like that need to get a little bit of extra attention. And I think the dirty tactics that I used to use are not being used as much. But it's good to see it back, and I'm pumped for it.
No, we'll get into that. Rui, I want to get your take on the tag. It was interesting hearing Ross Lyon. He said that he went over to Perth. He had dinner with Ryan Crowley and a few of the Fremantle boys, and he just reminisced and thought, yeah, I used to have a tagger all the time. Why'd I go away from it? So Rossi's decided to employ Marcus Windhager the last 2 or 3 weeks as a tagger. He thinks it's mythical that that your team defence breaks down if you have one tagger. He thinks he's realised, no, that's not right. You actually can. And now we are seeing other teams jump on board. Toby Bedford was a new tagger, tagging Zach Butters. We saw Will Phillips from North Melbourne do a pretty good job on Nick Dacos. How have you seen it, Roo?
Yeah, I mean, Ross is right. It is a myth because you've still got 17 guys out there that can cover ground when you're in that team defence setup. But what you do need to do is you need to be really organised because we see when players get tagged now, and Bakes, you would have lived this, is it's then easier for them to manipulate. So if you're tagging Joey, well then Joey can go to someone and create a 2v1. So you need smart guys. You can't just allow the tagger to sort of be siloed on an island by himself. He needs to be able to communicate. You might need to hand over from time to time, but for sure you can make an opposition best player's life really, really difficult and contribute to a win without compromising the rest of the way you want to play the game.
What was your thought process when you were a tagger? I mean, talk us through the mindset, the approach, the team aspect of it, trusting and relying on teammates. How did you go about becoming one of the best taggers? Because you won it best and fairest at St Kilda as a tagger. I mean, that is pretty impressive and shows the importance and the value of a tagger that you won a BNF.
Yeah, as Rui said, you had to trust your teammates because there was always times you had to hand over. When we had the zones set up, I'd always have him at the corner of my peripheral vision. I'd think, oh, there he is. Hope Chips is going to get him. I hope someone's going to pick him up. So you had to rely on your teammates a lot of the times. Even at stoppages, you get targeted, you get blocked. Your man would go, and you have to rely on someone else to take him. But I must admit, I did like when I had my arm across their chest, and I had them. That's what I did prefer the most.
No, fair enough. What about some of your toughest opponents? Who were, in your day, there were superstars everywhere. Who were the couple hardest to tag?
Benny Cousins, I remember he just ran me to death one day. I think I had a GPS, and he ran me over 18 kilometres, which was, I remember throwing up in the bin at half-time. But then there was the tough one. Buddha Hocking was my first ever. Gary Hocking.
Really?
Yeah, he just came up and whacked me in the nose, broke my nose in the first 1 minute of the game, and said, "Welcome to the AFL." Stevie Johnson, we had some unbelievable battles just because he was so smart. You had to be always mentally on your game. Who else was there?
So what type of player was the hardest? So there's the guys that would just try and gut run and run you ragged, whether it was the Ben Cousins and those types. What about there was the smart guys that, as Rui would touch on, would change positions or go and block or try and lose you by being smart, and then there were the guys that would just try and match your physicality or be brutal, or a whole team would be physical against you. Which one did you find the hardest to stop.
I hated the ones that skirted around the back. I remember Gary Ablett used to be, he'd suck me into the pack and then he'd skirt around the back and get the handball. I go, you little bugger. And so I liked playing on the guys that were in and under and loved getting into the battle. So they were my favourites.
Well, what about, Bakes, the psychology of it? I mean, you were a warrior, most selfless, toughest guy. I'm sure Joey would agree that we ever played with. How did you go, like, before a game? Just say peak Chris Judd. You're coming up against Chris Judd. What were you thinking in the room? Like, did you get really nervous playing on those guys, or did it in the end just become sort of your job?
No, I got very nervous because I never wanted to let the team down, and I know my man could change the game. So I'd have sleepless nights the night before. I'd do a lot of videotape. A lot of people think tagging is a mindless role, but I had to play every player differently. The Judds, he was perfect at the timing at the stoppage, so I had to do little dirty tactics, whack him in the guts when the ball's getting bounced up, stand on his feet. With the Ablets, I'd try and push him into the stoppage. Cousins, I just had to get towed around like a trailer. But different tactics for different players. But I got super nervous. So I was up all night worrying that my man would win the game for them.
What about, give us some of your, when you say dirty tactics, we'll keep it clean in here, but what were some of your little tricks? Because you had plenty of little tricks that, to be fair, most of them you couldn't get away with in 2024. What were some of your little tricks to try and slow down some of the greats?
Well, I saw Pendlebury do one where a little hit shot to the sternum, which is now, I think you can now reportable.
Could get suspended.
Can get suspended, but I thought, open hander, so that was a good one. My tricks I sort of found out from getting whacked myself. So one, I got hit in the back of the elbow and it made my arm go totally dead one day. So that just sort of prompted me to whack
back of the elbow.
Back of the elbow when they had a straight arm, which gave them a dead arm, and it worked on Stevie J. He was fumbling after I whacked him 50 or 60 times in the first. Yeah, couldn't feel his fingers. Pulling underarm hair out, that really seemed to annoy people.
Did you do that to Chris Judd one day? You actually pulled his underarm hair.
Yeah, and that's when he
of a pack, and he gave you one.
Well, I think it was at the back of a stoppage, and I pulled his underarm hair out, and then he gave me a backhander and got 2 weeks. So I was in his head a little bit, but. Then the tactics like pushing him into contests and things like that. So there were some dirty ones, but I got dirtier as I got older, I think, because I was getting a bit slower, and so I thought I had to slow them down a bit.
Hey, are we going to talk about your fight?
Yes, yeah.
Hey.
What do you got? I know you. Well, we know that you are a guy, Bakes.
Thanks.
You're a guy.
Yeah.
That when you put your mind to something, you get pretty committed to it. So we know you went through a stage at the poker. You did flirt with UFC for a little bit, but you did an Ironman, even though you weren't even meant to run because of a hip replacement. When you set your mind to something, you just go hell for leather, and you do it really well. Now you have to decide to put yourself in the boxing ring. Talk to us about that. Yeah,
well, the fight, I did train for a fight over a decade ago. I think I was playing for Sorrento at the time. I was doing some MMA, some jiu-jitsu, was planning on doing an MMA fight, and then hurt my knee the second last round, Sorrento. So fighting's always been something I've wanted to do, but then I thought, I'm getting a bit old, and I just bumped into Stevie J at one of my grit talks I did about a month and a bit ago. He was coaching Yarrawonga. I was doing the talk for Murderford. Long story short, we said, why don't we do a video and we'll try and get on next gather round. Because we saw those guys whack out. I thought we could whack on better than half
Nathan
those
Brown
guys.
And Kane Corns and Daisy Thomas.
Yeah, a lot of embarrassing fights on that on that card. So I thought Steve J and I did a video, and then a few boxing promoters reached out and said, we've got a card on Channel 7 Plus in 6 weeks. Do you want to whack on? And I just said, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I was like, yeah, before they finished the sentence. They were trying to find an opponent. Stevie J was busy. Then they went through a few other, Brent Harvey and Ackermanis, and they were trying to find.
No one wanted to fight Bakes.
I don't know if they didn't want to fight me or they were busy, so-called busy. Then Brodie Holland, he's a mate of mine, and we're thinking about doing a podcast together, I think. And he's put his hand up, so. Respect to him. We're going to get on there, and we've had a Team Alice have been training us for the last 6 weeks. It's been pretty brutal.
Yep.
I was thinking 3 2-minute rounds sounded easy, but the first session we'd 2 minutes on the heavy bag. I was gone within 40 seconds, throwing some hard bombs. But tomorrow night at the Pavilion, June 19th, we are whacking on. There's about 7 great fights. There's an Australian title fight, so. Yeah, it's going to be.
So you
gonna
can
be exciting.
walk up on the door still if you want to get tickets to go to the pavilion tomorrow night to watch not just you but the full card. Or where else can we get tickets if you don't want to go and watch you fight?
Can get tickets at the door or go to my Instagram, Stephen Baker 10.
Yep.
The ticket link
Stephen
is
Baker
on there.
10. Yep, the ticket link is on
yeah,
there.
it's gonna be a ripper. So it'll be good to get the win and then have a beer after. I haven't had a drink for a couple of months, so
You're
it'd be
looking good. You're looking sharp. And on
Yeah,
Channel 7 Plus.
hey,
as well.
Oh, what?
Hey,
Those old things. But
Mate,
yeah.
Lexi, like when back like 25 years ago when we first started out, you used to disappear to Colac for weekends to go back and hang out with your brother, and you used to go to the pizza shop in Colac, and then you'd come back after the weekend and say, oh well, 27-0 boys. So and every week it just kept going up, and it just kept going up and up and up.
Well,
I want to know, what is your current record, and are you entering this fight undefeated all time?
You put a bit of mayo on that. It was only 19. It was only 19, but no, it's 19-1. I copped one. I copped a hit in one of the Colac pubs one time and split me open, and I was trying to explain that to Rossi. So it's 19 and 1 at the moment.
Well, you can so you can watch tomorrow night, Wednesday night on Channel 7 Plus, or go to Stephen Baker 10 on Instagram, book a ticket, go along, take some mates, or you can rock up at the door. I can't wait. I'm going to try and
Book
get
a
there.
grit talk too.
Oh yeah, you got the grit talks as well.
Yes.
What else are you doing these days?
No, it's going well. Yeah, Stephen at buildgrit.com.au. I'm doing talks on mental health, battling adversity, starting to do a lot of schools as well. So talking about effort being more important than talent.
Yep.
And grit is gratitude, resilience, initiative, and teamwork. So I sort of break down what helped me get through some tough times, life after footy, and if there's any aspiring AFL players, young kids that want to learn about motivation and effort, that's what I give talks on. So it's been going really well, and booking out most weeks now. So it's really exciting.
Well done, Stevie. Hey, great to have you on the show. As we said, the tagger is back.
We're back. We are back.
So nice to have you on. Nice to reminisce as well. Good luck with the fight tomorrow, and then we might be able to catch up and have a drink once you punch the living suitcases out of Brodie Holland tomorrow night. Enjoy this. Hey, Roo, we'll come back after the break. I want to do a bit of a deeper dive version of real talk, shit talk with you. That's all still to come. If you do have a question for us, make sure you jump on Instagram at footytalk_pod or on TikTok at footytalkpod. You're listening to Footy Talk. If you do have a message for us or a question, make sure you jump on Instagram or on TikTok. I'm here with Nick Riewoldt. First of all, how good was it, Rooey, to chat to our old mate, Bam Bam Stevie Baker? He was, as you said, one of the toughest and the best teammate that we played with for all those reasons we spoke about. When you had a mate that you could look at and just know he would get the job done on the opposition's best player, it does lift the rest of the team. And I think that's important to know with the taggers back in vogue now, that not only is it that role that's important, it's what it also does and filters through to the rest of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the special thing about Bakes as a player was as much about what he brought on field as what he brought off field as well to the group.
Yes.
Regardless of the situation, he was always up and always sort of that heartbeat of the group. And so when you've got a teammate that's so popular off the field, that then goes out and everyone loves him, everyone likes him, but then he goes out and what he does on the field, that like and respect combination, it put him in pretty rarefied air amongst our group. Really special teammate. I'm sure it's the sort of player that a lot of opposition clubs love to hate, but would have loved him on their team. He's got a bit of Braden Maynard vibes for me.
Yeah, spot on. And we could do another podcast, the whole episode on Bakes' off-field antics. That would be one. Maybe not for Footy Talk podcast, but we'll find the right time to get him in again.
Probably not.
And talk about all the off-field antics. Hey, let's get into real talk, shit talk. First one for you, very topical at the moment. The AFL need to be careful about the way they communicate matters to the football public. Real or shit talk?
Oh, completely real. And the landscape and the AFL, I think, would be aware of this, but the question was, do they need to be? Yeah, absolutely they do, because I feel like on the back of what everyone has been through the last 3 to 4 years, COVID, politics, everyone has got much better bullshit radars than they've ever had. And if you are being spoken to by a politician or like a politician, which is how Laura Kane sounded yesterday, people can see straight through it. So if you're going to try and be political and dance around questions with political speak or legal speak, people are onto it. So I think you just got to, be as real as you possibly can, because, the footy fan knows the game, and they know when they're being spoken to in a way that is a little bit disingenuous. So that's real. That's one for the AFL to be careful of. I think they have so far this year done a really good job of admitting when things have gone sideways a little bit. So just encourage them to get back on that train. But this was one to be careful of. Hey, the rising star, Joey, it's been thrown into turmoil over the last few weeks, but George Wardlaw is now the runaway favourite to win the award.
Yeah, that's real talk, Roo. He was always going to be around the mark. He hadn't reached the heights, but his last 2 weeks, but his game on the weekend in particular was off the charts. The 30 disposals, but it's not just disposal. It's the way that he plays that you just can't quantify. His effort, his desire, his willingness to want to win and compete. He's going to lift this North Melbourne Football Club off the bottom of the ladder, maybe quicker than we all thought, because he is that type of player that you want to walk behind, a bit like our Lenny Hayes, the version of Lenny, a guy that you just want to lead your club, and the way that he played was sensational. That first half from North Melbourne was as good a half as we'd seen from any team this year. It was scary. Now, they can't play at that level all the time, but at least they know they've got the capability of playing to that level and something for them to work towards. It was a great sign, and led by George Wardlaw, I thought he was sensational.
Yeah, good call, Joey. Hey, great game for North Melbourne, but unfortunately not good enough. And flip it over to the Collingwood side of the equation. We've seen them do some unbelievable things over the past couple of years. They are never out of a game, and this was the ultimate example. Was this the best of those comeback wins under Craig McRae?
Oh, I think it had to be, Roo. I think that's real talk. I think 54 points down, the sixth most of all time. And it wasn't just the 54 points. It was, as I said, the way North Melbourne were playing. It was like they were the Harlem Globetrotters. They were unstoppable. And then for them to come out North Melbourne and kick the first goal of the third quarter, so it didn't just stop at half time. You went, oh, my goodness. And from that moment on, the Collingwood mindset and the psyche to just never give up and to find a way without 7 of their premiership players, you've got to remember, was incredible, led by Nick Dacos. That was the best of them all. So well done to Collingwood. A remarkable game of footy. One of the best games of footy I've been to, Rooey, because of the way it was at the start. Everyone was sitting there in disbelief. And then by the end, everyone was sitting there on the edge of their seats wondering which way it was going to pan out. One of the great games, certainly of the year, but of all time for me. Hey, last one for you. We didn't get stuck into too much about it. There's been plenty of talk about the Christian Petracca injury, and we know that he is now out for the rest of the season, and we wish him well and hope that he recovers to the best of his capabilities. But does that mean now you rule a line through Melbourne playing finals? So my question is, Melbourne will now miss finals with Petracca out. Real or shit talk?
Real talk. I think it's real, Joey. I think, we saw them wobbling when he was there, and the big Achilles heel for them has been their ability to score. With him out of the side, I think it's twofold. I just don't think they generate enough inside 50s now to make up for the fact that they are inefficient when they go in. And then the time that they've looked most dangerous and explosive in front of the ball is when he's actually been up there and, he kicked that bag of 5 a few weeks ago. So, yeah, it's just such a big hole. Those sort of unicorns that can play mid and then move forward like your Heaney's and your Petraccas, you just can't replace them. You can't, because you stick a guy in the midfield, you just don't have that explosiveness up forward as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them from here.
Yeah, it'll be Simon Goodwin. Well, it is Simon Goodwin's greatest challenge as coach to see if he can somehow get Melbourne back on track and get them into finals, and not only just finals, but to be a contender, because I tend to think with you, it looks very, very difficult without their best or second best player. Hey, that's all we've got time for. It was a bit of a different edition, a very special edition of Footy Talk today. If you are listening on Spotify, hit the bell to be notified when we drop a new episode. Check us out on Instagram at footytalk_pod. Check out Stevie Baker's fight tomorrow on Channel 7 Plus, or get your tickets on his Instagram handle. Tomorrow, Abby Holmes will be with Jack Heverin and David Zaharakis. Until then, thank you, Rooey, and enjoy your Tuesday. Thanks for watching Footy Talk. Subscribe to the channel to watch myself and Rooey every Tuesday.